In Russia, the presidential election continues on its third and last day. Authorities register a high turnout and no violence on the streets during the day. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israeli troops will continue the planned ground offensive in Rafah, raising fears of mass civilian casualties. And in Angola, authorities report over 30,000 people affected by flooding after heavy rains in the province of Bengo. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Russia is holding its third and last day of presidential elections on Sunday. High turnout and no violence in the streets have marked the whole electoral process, contrary to the predictions of the Ukrainian government. According to the latest report of the Central Electoral Commission, the total turnout taking into account online electronic votes in the Russian presidential election was 70.81%. It is estimated that the polling stations will close at 8 p.m. local time, and immediately the votes will be counted. The Central Commission aims to deliver the results before March 28th, taking into account that the electoral districts will deliver results until March 19th and the federal subjects will until March 21st. A recent report of the Commission confirms more than 12,600 potentially dangerous actions against its website in the last 24 hours. In Russia, the Central Election Commission confirmed that more than 4,361,000 people use its platform to cast online votes. The Electoral Commission detailed that the electronic voting participation figure is more than 91% of the population that requested to cast their ballots virtually. Likewise, authorities estimate that the overall participation in these presidential elections exceeds 70% of the voters. The new remote electronic voting system was implemented in some 28 regions of the country and in the capital, Moscow. President Putin praised its chairwoman, Ella Pamfilova, for the smooth functioning, agility, and efficiency of the process thanks to the new way for Russian citizens to exercise their vote. In Russia, over 1,100 international observers and experts from 129 countries assessed the development of the presidential elections. The chairwoman of the Central Election Commission, Ella Pamfilova, reported that the election body accredited 706 international observers from 106 countries at the World Youth Festival held in Sochi. She also confirmed that some 224 experts expressed their desire to learn about the electoral organization in Russia and not to be carried away by the opinions presented by Western media. Pamfilova also assured that another 185 experts arrived in the country at the invitation of the public chamber. Observers from the United States, South Africa, Germany, France, Mexico, among others, have pointed out the transparency of the elections. Ukraine continues its offensive against the right of Russian citizens to democratically elect their authorities. Several drones heading for Moscow were destroyed by Russian defenses on Sunday. Sergei Sobyanin, the mayor of Moscow, reported that one drone was destroyed in the Ramansky district, another one in Stupinsky, and a third one in Domodedovo. The new attempted attack was carried out early on Sunday and left no casualties or major damages. Several experts and some foreign media have questioned Kiev's strategy. As far from frightening the voters, it has managed to increase the turnout. This Saturday, Ukrainian aggressions left several dead and wounded. The Russian Foreign Ministry has also denounced that the Ukrainian armed forces are trying to sabotage the electoral process in the country and rattle citizenry. The Russian Foreign Ministry said it keeps a record of external sabotage attempts to the presidential elections and notes the West has resorted to extremism in Kiev's attempts to undermine the elections. Russia neutralized a Ukrainian attack carried out with the Vampire RM-70 multiple rocket launcher system in the city of Belgorod. The Russian Air Defense Ministry said 15 rockets were destroyed at around 5 p.m. local time. According to the report, Kiev's armed forces camouflaged their vehicles, which allowed them to reach the multiple rocket launchers used to carry out the terrorist attack. The government says this is just one more attempt of Ukraine to sabotage presidential elections in the city of Belgorod. And on Saturday, the incumbent president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, became the candidate for the ruling party ahead of the July 28th elections. Our correspondent in Caracas, Gladys Quesada, with the details.
These are the representatives of the grassroots foundations of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, the main political force in the country. They came by the hundreds from all over the country with one clear purpose. Alongside the main lines of the party, also the young branch arrived.
We come from a grassroots process where more than 317,000 assemblies were held in the streets, communities, and battle units Bolívar and Chavez UVC. From there, an expression was gathered, a proposal from our party basis to raise the 5th Congress of the party and the 4th Congress of the PSUV, the proposal of our President Nicolás Maduro as candidate of the Bolivarian forces, of the patriotic forces for the elections of July 28, 2024.
Democracy in Venezuela exists, and we as youth are proof of that. Today, we, the youth, have opportunities. We are visible and we have more opportunities both in government and in political positions. And we are here to ratify once again that our President Nicolás Maduro is the driver of victories.
Among the main key points that back this nomination are the Argyle dialogues, the homecoming and rescue of Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab, kidnapped in the U.S., the struggle for the Essequibo region, and the defense of the nation's natural resources. However, they have other reasons for the nomination.
The only candidate who can guarantee the stability of the country, there is no other, is definitely a compromise. President Maduro has not been allowed to govern. He has had many measures, many attacks, and many contrary actions that have not allowed him to govern. And one sees the insistence of ratifying the needs of the people, in contributing to the people, in solving things, and I believe that in a circumstance of progress, of development, President Maduro would surely do better.
Maduro represents a bond with Chavez, with the first spark of the revolution. That's why they packed the Poliedro of Caracas, a venue intended for sports and big events that today hosted the party's Congress.
Who agrees to nominate citizen Nicolás Maduro Moros as candidate of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and of the Bolivarian Revolution for the elections of 2024, to do so with the customary sign, take the photo, approved by acclamation, by majority, President Nicolás Maduro, he is your party. I'm here because of you, because of your strength, because of your intelligence, because of your wisdom, because of your perseverance. I am here for the people. That is why today I accept the presidential candidacy for the elections of July 28. I accept it. I assume it. And with the support of the people, we will go to a victory of the Bolivarian and Chavista forces.
Allied parties must also ratify the incumbent president as the nominee, and other political forces will follow up into the nomination process for their candidates to comply with what's established by the electoral authorities. All of this ahead of these general polls of July 28th that will decide the next heads of state for the new 5-year term. For teleSUR English, Gladys Quesada from Caracas, Venezuela.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. This Sunday in Mexico, the first debate between the three candidates for head of government of Mexico City will take place. Growth, economic development, and social policy are the main topics. This debate, organized by the Electoral Institute of Mexico City, will take place at 8 p.m. local time on the premises of MBS Television, and it will last up to 9 minutes. The topics to be addressed by the candidates are growth, economic development and public finance, and human development, welfare state and social policy. The candidates will decide how to use the time of their interventions. The floor will be requested to the moderators by a show of hands or through the means approved for the purpose, who will grant the floor respecting the order of the request. Republican hopeful Donald Trump predicts a bloodbath if he does not win November's presidential election. Insults, including against foreign leaders, disqualifications, racism, and now threats, have replaced proposals in the speeches of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The latter has undoubtedly taken a significant leap in his most recent public address in Ohio. In addition to insulting those investigating him, he alluded to the manufacture of Chinese cars in Mexico that would be sold to the United States if Biden was re-elected, forecasting a civil war and a bloodbath to prevent the sales from happening.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. If this election isn't won, I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country. Does that make sense? I don't think you're going to have another election in this country. If we don't win this election, I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful. And we better get out, or we better. I actually say that the date, remember this, November 5th, I believe it's going to be the most important date in the history of our country. I believe that.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Sunday that Israeli troops will continue the planned ground offensive in Rafah in southern Gaza, which has raised fears of mass civilian casualties. His remarks came as talks were expected to resume in Doha on a truce in Gaza, where Israel has been waging a campaign against Hamas-Palestinian resistance for more than 5 months. Israeli cabinet members were scheduled to discuss the negotiating team's mandate. Late Sunday, Netanyahu's office said. The Prime Minister was also scheduled to meet with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who was expected to reiterate his warning against a ground offensive in Rafah. Most of Gaza's 2.4 million residents have taken refuge from relentless Israeli bombardment in the southern city near the coastal territory's border with Egypt. Israel and Hamas prepare to launch a new attempt to reach agreements on Sunday in Doha, Qatar. The whole world demands an urgent ceasefire. Before leaving, only 5 members of the Security Cabinet met in Tel Aviv. The national media speculated that the Hamas proposal was on the table. The Doha meeting also had as an input the document of the Palestinian resistance. It contemplates the handing over of hostages in exchange for 100 Palestinian hostages, some of them sentenced to life imprisonment, as well as a ceasefire in 3 phases. The Israeli delegation, led by the head of Mossad, David Bernea, starts with a pessimistic outlook because they consider the Hamas proposal unrealistic. Large demonstrations took place worldwide for a ceasefire in Gaza and the right of the Palestinian people to freedom, while the genocidal Israeli army killed 92 people, almost all of them women and children, in less than 24 hours. In addition to the deadly toll, Palestinian authorities registered 130 wounded. Israeli fighter planes bombed Han Yunis and Rafah overnight. Almost simultaneously, occupation forces blew up a house in West Gaza and another in Deir al-Balah. This latest onslaught brings the death toll to 31,645 and the number of wounded to over 73,600, according to official figures endorsed by the World Health Organization. Let's review some of the latest data related with the Israeli occupation siege in Gaza. The army has damaged or destroyed more than 360,000 homes since the beginning of the siege in the Gaza Strip, causing more than 85% of the Palestinian population to be displaced. The education sector has been hard hit with the destruction of most of its schools. Some 392 educational facilities have been damaged by the constant attacks of the Zionist army. Some 267 institutions dedicated to worship were also affected. The health sector, one of the most essential ones, is one of the most critical, with only 12 medical facilities out of 35 partially functional. The rest have been destroyed. Israel not only attacks homes and hospitals, but also provokes hunger in the Palestinians, cutting off all ways to get food or destroying them. An example of this is the destruction of 11 bakeries in Gaza. In Angola, floods due to rains leave more than 30,000 people affected in the province of Bengo. According to the Civil Protection Service and firefighters of the region, the rains caused damage to more than 5,300 houses and 36 public and private institutions. Authorities confirmed that due to the floods and the fall of electricity poles, 2 people died as a result of an electric shock. According to sources, rescue teams are working to drain the water from the affected houses and have cut off the electricity supply in order to avoid further accidents. Rainfall during the rainy season usually affects communities due to deficiencies in drainage and sewage services. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. The Iraqi resistance has rejected a likely government decision of granting immunity to the U.S. forces that remain in the country. The head of security for Hezbollah argued U.S. troops have not changed their behavior, referring to the aggressions against targets of Iraqi resistance. They also denounced that the United States is trying to prolong its presence in the country, despite the fact that the Iraqi government has demanded its withdrawal. Washington still has some 2,500 soldiers deployed, some in Iraq under the pretext of fighting against the Daesh terrorist group. But given that the Iraqi government did proclaim the expulsion of the group from its territory in 2017, the demand for U.S. troops has become a national demand. The United Nations organization warns of worsening food crisis in Sudan in the coming month. The head of the Office of Humanitarian Operations, Martin Griffith, confirmed that close to 5 million people are in a situation of food emergency. The agency denounced the treatment received by the most vulnerable population in special need. Griffith detailed that they estimate that the city of Khartoum will be the most affected by the food shortage, aggravating the humanitarian crisis which caused the displacement of 8 million civilians. He noted that the organization can only help less than 40% of those in urgent need of assistance and said that $400 million is needed for the regional response to stem the tide of hunger. Niger's ruling National Homeland Defense Council Board has broken the military accords with the United States, and U.S. troops will have to leave the country. The decision took place after a U.S. delegation headed by the Undersecretary of State for African Affairs, Molly Fee, visited the country. Although Washington remains silent, the Nigerian government spokesman Ahmadu Abdurrahman explained that the guests violated diplomatic protocol by not informing who was part of the mission, which in addition to Molly Fee included the head of the United States Command in Africa, Michael Langley. The decision is effective immediately.
The Nigerian government, taking into account the aspiration of these people, has decided to revoke completely and with immediate effect the accords relating to the status of military personnel and civilian employees of the United States Department of Defense in the territory of the Republic of Niger.
In central Greece, revelers dressed as tanners and ghosts parade in costumes as they celebrate the Night of the Ghosts Carnival in the remote mountainous town of Amphissa. Residents of Amphissa, a small town in central Greece, celebrated Ghost Night on Saturday with a giant monster made of cardboard, rope, and fabric. Locals rang cowbells while a sound system played the cries of ferocious animals as residents dressed up as elves, tanners, and ghosts using goat skins, horns, and bells with chains on their belts. The nocturnal celebration comes from the tragic legend of a local couple, Constantis and a tanner, and Lenio, a young girl from Amphissa. Constantis' ghost is said to inhabit a well and roam the town making beastly shrieks. According to the legend, he committed suicide after Lenio was struck by a lightning and killed at the well. St. Patrick's Day celebrations are taking place in towns and cities across the country on Sunday, with an estimated 500,000 people gathering to Glyn to watch the parade. Drummers, horses, and a sea of green as Dublin holds its 40th annual St. Patrick's Day parade. The religious holiday commemorating the death of St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, has metamorphosed into a day of celebrating Irish culture through parades, music, dances, and a lot of green, the color commonly associated with the saint. Crowds of people from home and abroad wearing shamrock-shaped sunglasses, Irish jerseys, and leprechaun hats were wowed by a selection of colorful floats and musical performances in what has been billed as the biggest ever national parade. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.